Her face has been seen across the nation, but no one seems to know where she is. It's been nearly 18 months since anyone has seen the now 13-year-old girl. Last time we did see her was in Cornelius when she got off her school bus to see her there playing with her hair. This was back on November 21st, 2022, right before Thanksgiving. Her parents didn't report her missing, however, until 3 weeks later. Well, today her mom, Madalina Cojocari, and stepfather, Christopher Palmer, were set to face a judge. While there's a delay in Palmer's trial, the girl's mother, Madalina Cojocari, went before a judge and actually pleaded guilty. WBTV's Natisha Lance sat down with former prosecutor Beth Green to talk about what we can expect from Palmer's trial.
I would be shocked if it were particularly lengthy. I mean, it's one charge. The elements of the charge are fairly straightforward. What could hold things up is jury selection, because the trial is about a case that has received so much attention, not just locally, but nationally. Both for the defendant as well as for the state are going to want to find out whether or not, prospective jurors can set aside what they've heard in the media, what they've read online, whether or not they can set that aside and base their verdict on just what they hear in the courtroom.
Should we expect him to testify?
Under our Constitution, a defendant does not have to incriminate himself or herself, does not have to take the witness stand. But I could see him or even someone else on his behalf taking the stand to try to attack one of the elements of the crime that the state does have to prove. Is he going to try to say that he did not know that Madalina was missing or had a reason to know that she was missing? Because that is an element that the state has to prove. And, if he's going to attack one or more of the elements that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, I could see that being one of them if he were to put up evidence again, either through his own testimony or that of someone else saying he did not have any reason to know that she was missing.
So if you're the prosecutor, what's your strategy in this case?
For this particular charge, if I were the prosecutor, I would keep it clean. You have only one charge that you've got sufficient evidence to bring against him at this point in time. I would keep it clean. There will, I'm sure, by the nature of the story and the narrative and the evidence itself, the jury's obviously going to hear that Madalina is still missing. I mean, I think that's a very important and relevant part of the evidence and the story that the state has to tell. But I would keep it clean. And quite frankly, I don't know that the judge is going to let the state get too far afield and try to inflame the emotions of the jury. At the end of the day, the defense is probably also going to want this to be a pretty clean trial, because the defense certainly doesn't want this to be a trial about a little girl who's still missing and is she dead or has she been kidnapped or some awful thing happened to her. The other thing the state does have to be careful of is that, look, this is an ongoing investigation. So in trying this case against the stepfather, the state, prosecutors and law enforcement have to be careful that they're not going to show their hand on the ongoing investigation either.
So Madalina Cojocari pleaded guilty. He's pled not guilty. Could there potentially be them turning against each other?
At this juncture, I would be surprised. I feel like if Diana were going to turn against the stepdad that's going to trial, she would have done it before now. But she essentially waited to enter her guilty plea. As I understand it, I was not in the courtroom, but as I understand it, she pled guilty without the benefit of a plea agreement with the state, which means that essentially she's not getting anything in return. She served enough time that the judge could not sentence her to any more active time than she has already spent in the Mecklenburg County Jail. I think she bided her time, will not be testifying, and is going to take her time served and move on. Likewise with him, I think that if he were going to turn against her, he wouldn't be going to trial. He would have entered into some type of agreement with the state where he would, or his lawyers would have negotiated some type of lesser sentence if he were going to provide evidence against Diana.
Because she served enough time, and now they're saying that she might be deported.
Correct.
How do you proceed with an ongoing investigation, and if other charges are filed eventually? How will they handle that internationally?
And to my knowledge, the United States does not have an extradition treaty with Moldova. I believe that's where she's from, and if she is deported, That doesn't mean that eventually, if she is charged with some other crime related to the disappearance of her daughter, that there could not be some type of agreement between Moldova and the United States, but we don't have a standing extradition treaty. Different countries evaluate whether or not to extradite to the United States based upon the nature of the charge, the type of punishment that the defendant is facing. But because we don't have an extradition treaty with Moldova, there is the possibility that if she's deported and additional charges are eventually brought, there's a real possibility that she may never be held accountable for those additional charges once she's deported.
Great insight from attorney Beth Green. Appreciate her time.